listening to Off the Card, an action figure podcast, a show about action figures by kids trapped in the bodies of grown men. And here they are, Billy Cooper and Eric Murphy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Off the Card, an action figure podcast. This is us spinning off of the ITCE podcast, going very toy-centric. Joining me, my co-host, Eric. Eric, what's
Hello.
up?
How's it going?
So, what we're going to do is now, with this episode, preface it, this is going to be us. This is our horror episode. This is our Halloween episode, if you will. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of touch base on the beginning of the modern horror action figure into kind of what it's morphed into. Looking back, we've talked, me and you have been friends for a long time, man. We've talked about this. Going back all the way to the Migos, Remco, the Aurora model kits. They've always been a version of horror, quote, action figures.
Yeah, it's pretty much been a constant since going away. I mean, I'd say as early as Universal Monsters, Alien with their one-off figure in the late 70s, 80s.
The 79 big chap, the 18-inch big boy.
Yeah, the 85 or 86 Matchbox Freddy Krueger pull string.
Actually, 89. I looked that up today. Okay. Yeah, I looked that up today. 89 Max Factory.
Which they also did a figure. It was a build-a-figure of Freddy. Max Factory did also. Max
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah.
So they've always been, a fascination with monsters and action figures. If I remember correctly, Mego didn't really have the Universal monsters, but they still put out a Dracula and a Frankenstein. It wasn't
Karloff or Lugosi or Lon Chaney. It was just like your standard open source.
Yeah. This is the Wolfman, but is it, the Wolfman? No, not so much. So you've always had those, and I was going through like Aurora model kits a few nights ago looking at different, like they made victims, and there's all kinds of insect creatures and all that cool stuff. So it's really cool. There's been a long history of really a fascination with movie monsters. We've really seen the movie monster take hold, though, in the 80s with the
slashers.
Late 70s, in the 80s into the slashers. And then you kind of have your unholy trilogy. You have your, unholy trinity, I should say, Freddy, Jason, Leatherface. Yep. Those are kind of like your Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman of DC. That's your guys.
Yeah.
And most companies build their...
the foundation of... slashers, those three, it's almost like the big four of heavy metal. You're looking at your Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, Pinhead, Leprechaun are all kind of the Chucky or the foundation of the 80s into the 90s of horror franchises. You wanted a franchise, you built off that foundation.
Yeah. So whenever these companies come along, from McFarlane to Mezco to Soda to NECA, Soda not so much, but NECA, they always go for these baseline characters, and then kind of explode out and do some of the other cooler stuff later on when they get the following and the money, fills up the coffers. So in 98, I remember reading. I used to read Toy Fair. I'm dating myself. I'm old.
When Toy Fair was good.
Toy Fair was good. Well, was it ever really good looking back on it? It's what we had. But I had Toy Fair and Tomarts and Lee's and White Sky, and there's a bunch of stuff. But definitely with McFarlane hitting the shelves with Movie Maniacs, blew the doors open, went into actual stores, not like hidden on the back rack at a comic book shop. His first line right off the gate was Eve from Species, when Species was a thing.
I think it's around the time the second movie came out.
Species
2 came out in 98, 99.
That sounds about right. You had Eve, you had Patrick, and then you had your unholy trinity of Jason, Freddy, and Leatherface. These were, I've used the term before, and I'll say it again, these were nerd hummels. They weren't really articulated. No knee joints, no leg joints. If you got a cut at the waist, you were lucky. But that's,
The wrist, I think the wrist barely turned.
barely.
Barely turned.
If it's a McFarlane
And I
piece,
think, and the feet
don't
barely
burn it.
turned because the feet barely turned because they wouldn't stand upright. You'd
Yeah.
ever,
No.
they would never stand upright.
Yeah.
You would have to glue them to the table, or you have to like lean them against their backdrop in order for them to stand upright.
Yeah, and the backdrops were cool because you had that weird
Oh, yeah.
like spine
It was like
column, and
and it was like the original movie poster.
yeah, whoever they based the figure off of, or what movie, they had a movie poster, like a now playing type poster,
Yeah.
display like
Yeah.
you'd find in old school video stores type thing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that the timing of when McFarlane started in '98 was a year or two removed from the first Scream movie. It's right when horror started to pick up pace again with the first Scream film.
Yeah,
It was literally I think he knew, he's like, okay, because within that time, Scream came out, Final Destination came out, and a couple others, and then you start to get the WB era of horror right after. I call the WB era of horror because every WB actor was in a horror movie from the late '90s
now I
to the
know
2000s.
what you did last Tuesday.
Yeah.
All
So
that type
he
of
literally
shows.
literally caught it right when
Mhm.
horror had picked the uptick up again and started to take off.
And also too, keep in mind this is '98, and some of the guys that are older than us that love these movies in the '80s were now getting into their 20s, and they had disposable
Yeah,
income.
disposable income, like what
Oh,
we
yeah.
see today with the retro stuff coming out.
Oh,
My
absolutely.
generation has the disposable
Absolutely.
income to rebuy Masters of the Universe and Ghostbusters and
Oh,
whatnot.
absolutely. Can you sell us our childhood again? Thank you, sir. May I have another? I
Mhm.
completely understand that. So the first wave, you had a pretty good mix, interesting mix. You had the R-rated wave, which were like comic shops and things like that got these, and that was Eve with nipples, a blood splattered Freddy, blood splattered Jason, blood splattered Leatherface. But then you had another wave that, if I remember correctly, these came a couple of waves after wave one, which was the blood splattered package
Yeah,
of the blood splattered
the blood
character.
smear.
Yeah. And it was only Freddy, Jason,
Jason
and
and
Leatherface.
Leatherface.
Yeah.
Yep.
And those were comics. I remember very specifically those being comic shop only. So
See, I never saw it because I never really went into comic shops when I was a kid.
yeah.
I think a few times I popped into a couple, but never during that era. I came into possession of one through Dennis as a gift,
Yep.
and that one makes me sad now.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, I remember me and him bought both of our Leatherfaces, or he bought a Leatherface and I bought, I believe, a Jason.
no,
at the same time.
Yeah, I think it was a Jason. Yeah, it was a Jason because I took it, got autographed by Kane Hodder.
Yep.
Bitch.
So yeah. So this was early, and this is, and then you got Series 2, which hits in Series 2 in '99.
Which had Ghostface, right?
Ghostface, which was a big one. You had Chucky. You had Eric Draven, Crow, which had a cult following at that point. A great figure. And again, these things aren't articulated. The ghost face looks like it's in motion. He's
Frozen. Yeah,
he's frozen. Michael Myers is just a jumpsuit, and that's about it. But great sculpt, though. That's the one thing I'll always say about McFarlane for the time period in '98, man, and he was killing it. Norman Bates was, for some reason, with me and in my group, was hard to find for some reason. It took us about a month to locate one.
Well, that was back at that time, though. And correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it like a thing that we were running into, almost like how to describe it, like the monopoly pieces at McDonald's, that some states seem to get more of one thing than another.
It felt that way for sure. I think honestly a lot of it was, though.
But that was pre-hardcore internet to where we could actually start figuring things out.
Yeah. I think a lot of it was Norman Bates was just one of those figures that either maybe it was like, I don't know, maybe it was a short pack, or maybe it was super popular. I never knew. We all got one, but I remember it took one of us a little bit longer than normal to get one. But again, very static figures, very nerd humble. They just sat on the shelf. Hopefully, they sat on the shelf. But good pieces nonetheless. A lot of fun. I honestly think that's probably one of my more favorite waves in the series two. And series two also had my favorite movie maniac, which is Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
That's when you see him kind of going out a little bit, but and I thought that was just great because you never see. I mean, Pumpkinhead at that time, and it still is. It's kind of like B list.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a movie that
Beloved.
Stan Winston directed it and also did the special effects for it. So it was a special effects directed movie. So like you knew the effects were going to be like out of control. It's just the story's kind of, it's more of a it's not, I mean, it's a horror film, yeah, but it's more of a revenge story than anything else.
Absolutely. Series three is when things start, to me, McFarlane. I've read interviews and stuff where he's like, look, this movie Maniacs was not horror movie Maniacs.
It's just
These were
maniacs.
these
Yeah.
are maniacs from film and stuff. And I'm like, okay. Or it was made for fans that were maniacs of movies. And I get that too. The series three is when things starts getting wacky, but things start getting fun too, because he gives us Ash.
Yeah.
And he runs that mold into the ground.
Yep.
We get another version of the Crow, but that's in one of those
Standalone fish tanks.
fish tank cases, which were great. I love those. I've got a couple of them downstairs, like Manga Spawn and stuff. They're just really cool still.
Dennis still I talked to Jeremy, and Dennis is still sitting on the. I'm like, oh dear God.
Yeah, that's a cool one. You got Edward Scissorhands, which was interesting. He's got a huge fan base, and it's a good looking figure. Like I said, all the sculpts on these are killer. The paint.
Well, at the time, that was one of the few Burton films that had a toy out, other than Batman.
Yeah,
he didn't have a toy out for anything else.
No, you're right. You get the Fly, which was a great figure, great movie, and then you get Shaft, the Sam Jackson version. Two versions of Snake Plissken, which is a great figure to this day. But again, these things are statues. I'd love to see a fully articulated 6-inch scale Snake. I'm sure we're going to get one by NECA eventually.
I would love to have another Snake Plissken figure. Yeah,
it's coming. And then you get two figures from the Thing. You get the monster, and then you get the Norse creature and the Spiderhead. Spiderhead being absolutely gorgeous.
Now, I want to say that this run, I've noticed the trend of it started out. It seems like these added more and more figures to each line.
Well, there was definitely some art. There was some more variant, not more variants, but I know like there's an Edward Scissorhead variant with the powdered makeup and then the human face.
Yeah.
And then I know the Snake Plisskens were variants, coat on, coat off. It definitely feels that way. Series 4, now we're getting into 2001. Series 4, we get Blair Witch. We get two versions of Blair Witch. And McFarlane started doing that. You could feel it a lot. And I never quite understood getting a Blair Witch figure. They had no plans to ever show her.
No, and that's why if you look at the packaging, it says Todd McFarlane's Blair Witch. So I'm guessing it's like Todd McFarlane's interpretation of Blair Witch.
Yeah, kind of like he does Batman and Wonder Woman. Now he does his interpretation. So
yeah,
we get Candyman from Candyman 3. That's still a great figure, by the way. I seen that not too long ago. Still
great figure, horrible film.
Yeah. Well, I mean everything after part 2 or 1. Yeah. We get Evil Ash, which was, mind blowing back then that we're getting Army of Darkness anything. That Series 4 Freddy with the claws to the face. I love that Freddy pose. It's very, I don't know, it's just really cool. He's got more of the baggy sweater on. Yeah. They've really nailed that Freddy sculpt. And then you get your T800 and your T1000. Yeah. And that's cool. These were popular though. And this was
those are the first two I ever bought.
Yeah, these were very popular figures. That's the thing about with McFarlane stuff. He always had a figure or two that was the crossover figure. That no one, please don't take offense, but you're like, oh look, it's Snake Plissken, or oh look, Mom, I'm a Hot Topic girl, and there's an Edward Scissorhands.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. They always had that fun crossover piece. Series 5 is when they went to the clamshell. There was some wonkiness, I think, with this series. You had Djinn from Wishmaster. I don't remember Wishmaster really being a thing. We all kind of looked at
it. It was a Wes Craven Presents thing. So, like the first film, that they did wasn't bad, but then it turned into a direct. And also that movie, same situation, directed by a special effects guy. It was one of the guys from. It was Kurtzman from K&B Effects.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they did the effects, and Robert Kurtzman directed it. So it was another same situation as Pumpkinhead.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, that's for the horror guy then, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great looking sculpt though. I don't care about the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like Pumpkinhead for some people. Just the look of it is badass, but the movie it's a special thing.
Series 5, I remember the clamshell. I remember finding these at like Myers, of all places.
Yeah.
You got Jason X, which was really hard to find back then. I remember that was one of those ones that a lot of people chased. The Lord of Darkness from Legend was a beautiful sculpt, a big honking figure on that clamshell. That was a heavy boy, beefy. You had the variants of Sarah Connor, ponytail with a hat without a hat with her hair down.
I remember her being hard to find.
She was.
Her and Jason X were both really hard to find.
Yeah. You had a variant, I guess, to the T100 endoskeleton. You had a large chest plate, a small chest plate. That was probably just a run. A running change. And then you had Tooth Fairy, again, based on a movie from an upcoming movie. A figure from an upcoming movie, and then it ended up turning from Tooth Fairy to Darkness Falls. So he kind of overshot. Maybe he gambled. It didn't pay out. And that right there was honestly the last time we've seen horror for a while from him, as far as like traditional. But then he started dabbling in the Alien and the Predators and things like that. He had a spinoff series of the AVP. Had like some little dioramas and stuff, which were cool. Lord of Darkness got put out in a collector's case. A big fish tank. That was neat.
A couple of 2-packs busted out here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah. And this time, though, he's actually doing these 18-inch figures, too. Series 7 is when you start getting your human Corporal Hicks, and there was different versions of him. And then this is when he did pretty much, I don't understand why they didn't do a spin-off of this, but I'm not in the toy industry, so I don't know. But it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, the well-received remake.
Yeah, the 03 that Michael Bay and Robert Isfell did.
Yeah, really good. But the figures were great on this. Again, very static, very statuesque. And then you had RoboCop in this series,
which was super hard to find.
Yes, people, man. When
that one was a surprise attack out of everybody, because nobody realized that was coming. And then I remember he made the announcement and showed the pictures, and I'm like, oh, this one's gonna be a bitch to find, because nobody had done a legit RoboCop figure except for the cartoon series figures.
The old Kenner stuff, yeah. So, and during this time, he did different 2-packs. He used that ash mold. I did talk to somebody that was a video game store manager back in the day, and when you talked earlier about the Evil Ash being a Spawn website exclusive.
Yeah,
the website stuff did get dumped later at video game stores, and that's what I thought. So
that's what I was like. I know, because I was not meddling with internet stuff back then. I remember walking into the Bloomington, because most of the time I went to the Bloomington Electronics Boutique, because that EB in Bloomington was huge. It's where the GameStop was for a long time until recently.
Yeah,
and when the very back of that back wall was like 7 feet tall, it is a wall of McFarlane.
Oh hell, that wall was every bit almost 10 feet tall.
And I remember the top shelf is where they had the big box sets set up there, and the 18-inch figures. And so I remember going with my mom, and then the middle rack on the floors where they had clearance stuff. And that's where I remember walking past that Jaws box set for $20 one time and not buying it.
Well, I'm looking through here, and I'm looking at the Collectors Club figures. There's 3 different Predators that were Collectors Club.
Some translucent greens.
Yeah. I've never, honestly, I've never seen the Hicks Collectors Club. Honestly, looking at all this, I'm like, some of these I saw
a Collectors Club translucent white before.
Okay.
I remember seeing that in Sam Goody or something.
Okay, Sam Goody had a 12-inch that was exclusive. Well,
I remember that one. Yep, I remember that one.
Yeah. So looking, they did box sets. You had your Alien Predator box set. You had your Alien Queen box set. Your Bride of Chucky box set, which was a great box set. That was your first Tiffany figure.
There's one 12-inch figure that that I forgot about, and I think it was McFarlane that did it. I'm almost positive. They did a 12-inch RoboCop.
They did. Battle
And
Bands.
and it had sound in it too.
Yep.
I think.
I don't know if that one did, but I believe the other company did one.
Naked Man did one later.
So
But I remember there being a 12-inch tall RoboCop.
You had Ash, Edward Scissorhands. I don't think I've ever seen that 18-inch Edward Scissorhands.
I have I bought one for an ex-girlfriend.
Okay, fair enough.
And so I've seen one because the scissors moved.
Really?
Yes, they did.
Oh, yeah, his fingers. You're right. I have seen that. Michael Myers, Freddy, Leatherface, Ash, all 18 inches, all sound. You had the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They did 12-inch Leatherface, which is a cool piece. A 12-inch Crow. They did a 12-inch scale Chucky. So yeah, and in the box sets he had Bride of Chucky. He did the Freddy, Jason, Fish Tank pre the movie ever being announced. And then you had the Jaws box set, and then you had the King Kong, and you had a pink dressed Fay Ray or a red dressed Fay Ray. The Kong box set's really cool. It's very, at the time everyone kind of laughed at it like, but now you look at it and you're like, oh, that's, it looks so much like the original animation, the stop motion stuff, that it's just kind of got its own nostalgia now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think at that time, as these picked up more and more and more and got bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. It afforded him the ability to start branching out. That's when he started doing the music stuff. That's when he did Metallica box set. He did the Motley Crue box set, Angus Young, Elvis, Flash, Hendrix, Garcia.
Yeah.
But he did those
and all that stuff.
So he started doing so he started branching off with that, and he did the Clive Barker's Tortured Souls run, which went 3 or 4 runs out, which was amazing looking.
Oh, yeah, he did the Tortured Souls. He did the McFarlane's Monsters.
Yeah.
He did the
Twisted Fairy Tales.
The Killers. Oh, yeah.
I think about that time, he was starting to kind of drift off from the horror stuff, and that's when he got the contract for the NFL, the NBA, and MLB. And I feel at that point, I was like, okay, I've done everything I can do horror-wise, and then he kind of let the contracts go, and that's when we kind of saw a shift off of McFarlane into the 2000s with NECA and Sodas and Mezco.
I mean, he did that during this time, though. He also did the Sleepy Hollow series, which was great.
I forgot about the Sleepy Hollow run.
Oh man, that Headless Horseman box set is
with the Tree of Death. Oh yeah,
yes, just amazing.
Yeah,
he did a lot of good stuff, man. And I'm always going to be a McFarlane guy. I always, because I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, look, he did The Walking Dead, love it or hate it, man. He is. He's quit now. Yeah. But, I mean, he's done so much stuff. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
Figures.
Yeah, I always love to pick his brain one day and ask him, like, you had a huge run through the 90s into the 2000s with the Movie Maniacs. Why did you let it go? I'd love to pick his brains. Like, what, I know you had a lot of irons in the fire, with the music stuff, and then later the sports stuff is like, but why were you just okay just to like say we're done with it? Did it stop? Did it not sell as well as what you hoped, or do you feel like
I'm looking at release dates here and stuff, and this is what I'm seeing. We've kind of touched on it. I'm seeing a lot of these movie monsters, his version, are around 2002, a precursor a couple of years before he quit doing that. And that's it. And then you got your Twisted Land of Oz, and then you've got your Six Faces of Madness, and then all of a sudden he's not doing Movie Maniacs anymore.
And they did Dragons.
This Twisted Fairy Tale. A lot of this comes down to his sculptors got to do what they wanted, and it looks to me like there's a possibility that he didn't have to pay an IP anymore.
Yeah,
I mean that's probably got to the point.
Making your own stuff is cheaper, probably at the end of the day.
Oh well, hell yeah! Not paying the middleman.
Contracts.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all. So great figures, very memorable. Started this boom. Then you got guys like Mezco that step in, and they run for a few years. They went whole hog and did a lot of great stuff as well. More cartoony feel, and they went really not super obscure, but they went in the really different takes of your classic slashers. Freddy, though you got the cockroach lady, you got Freddy
Yeah.
in his different tuxes and
Yeah. Well, what's funny
attire and stuff.
at that time when McFarlane let it go, Texas Chainsaw's last big thing because it came out in 03. And then we had the remake spree start in 03. And you had remakes galore getting made. And then you had the a few one-off surprise things. And one thing out of NECA and Mezco, what they did, they bucked the trend. They didn't make anything for remakes. They decided to go hard into the classic stuff and cult classic stuff, and not do anything of the new age of horror, other for the exception of Shaun of the Dead. Everybody else was like, nah. They went to a safety zone of classic sells. New stuff is questionable.
Well, it all really revolves around, again, your unholy trinity. These, when you've got, it's either affiliated or are either Nightmare, Friday, or Texas. It's one of those three.
And even Hellraiser, NECA,
NECA did their Hellraiser
hardcore. Yeah.
Oh, that Hellraiser series was really good, way ahead of its time. It had Build-A-Figure pieces. Yeah, it was killer.
And there's a couple of sets that I forgot about that NECA made. The only new age stuff that they made of new age films coming out, they had the Contract of Freddy vs. Jason. And they had the big box set that I had with the magnetic severed head. And they did those, and then they did something else I forget now, crap. But that's the only new age stuff. Everything else was classic. And then they went and delved into classic stuff that nobody had ever seen before, like Reagan and Tall Man.
Well, and you factor in too, during this time, you also had the start of Living Dead dolls. You had the horror mezzets. You had a bunch of stuff like that all kind of sprout up. And then, fast forward, not really fast forward, but creep through the 2000s into 2010, and then past that, and then NECA rears its head with the way it's doing stuff now. With these
there was a lull.
boxes.
There was like a 5 or 6 year lull, I want to say, of no horror figures.
Yeah,
it hit a dead spot from 2000, I'd say probably 7 or 8, all the way up to about 2016. It hit a dead zone where, like, I don't know, because I've been told,
that was more based on like movies. You had stuff like The Wolfman, or it was all movie centric. They weren't going back and mining those old properties.
Yeah, that, and I also, from what I've been told, a couple of properties. One currently is still. I'm surprised that NECA is doing the Friday the 13th stuff right now with the lawsuit between Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller, overwriting who wrote Friday the 13th, because that's what destroyed the video game. That's why there has been a movie made. And then also at the same time, Nightmare on Elm Street's IP went back to the Wes Craven estate. It fell out of New Line's hands. So at the time, it was at the time where all these contracts are letting out and getting shuffled around. And I think it's why there wasn't any toys made for a while, because they're like, we don't know who to talk to. And now they're starting to get sewn up to where they're supposed to be. And now we're starting to see more figures drop.
Yeah, you've got guys. You've always had companies that step in and dabble and piddle around a little bit. You had your Soda that popped up and did some really cool stuff, but did some really obscure stuff as well. You had a Muck, Time Toys with their Monsters line. They did some creep show stuff.
They had amazing Tar Man for Living Dead.
Tar Man and
Dr. Tongue.
Dr. Tongue
from Dawn of the Dead.
Great stuff there. But that's just, little kind of one-off type stuff, really not lines per se. But then the way, now you've got NECA, and NECA basically started dropping these these ultimates, from their cult classics on up now to their ultimates. We've seen a complete change in how these figures are made. They're no longer just statues. You can get them in some great poses. They come with screen accurate costumes. You've got,
and that's the one thing I feel like McFarlane missed the mark on. If he would have approached that, he could have literally, like the Holy Trinity, he could have every run did a different interpretation of those three, especially 2 of them. He had 7 sequels on one and 8 on the other at the time. He could have he only did 2 versions. He did one from Jason Goes to Hell, and then he did Jason X. Freddy,
Yeah. Basically, McFarlane did. He waited to do that until he got the DC license and did 5,000 Batmans.
Yeah, that's where, because at some point, I guarantee you, what it's agent or somebody's going, you realize back in the '90s you screwed up with this. Don't do it again.
Good.
And now
Yeah,
we're going. I don't care if you have to do one for every day he's been alive. We're
Yeah.
doing it that way. But
we're going to keep going.
because now NECA has taken that and it's like, oh, we're going to go and make every single interpretation of Jason, Leatherface, Freddy. The only interpretation of Jason we haven't got yet is him as a child. That's the only one we haven't seen come through the door yet, and Jason X. That's the only two that we haven't seen.
Honestly, I see a Jason X coming.
Oh, he'll be coming. He'll be coming. Because I see them doing a 2-pack with him pre-Uber and then Uber.
Well, it's great because we're at this point now in our lives where bullshit has turned into nostalgia. Now people are going, hey man, remember that episode 1 Star Wars? That was kind of fun. It wasn't, but okay.
I just was in Walmart in the Halloween section, and they have nice boxed high-end Halloween masks for Star Wars Episode 1.
Yes.
And I'm like,
okay.
Yeah. I was in there just laughing. I'm like,
but I mean, we're at that point though where people want this for nostalgia. It's like now it's not like, oh, that movie sucked. Now it's like, no, that movie sucked, but man, it was goofy fun, and that character design was cool, and I need it, and it's kind of evolved. And
it's almost 20. The first film is almost 25 years old. So if a 7-year-old or 8-year-old who was all about Episode 1 is now college age,
that's right.
You're right in the territory.
Yep. And it's one of those things, like you always had, you've got your guys like Super 7 that are doing great stuff with their 5 points of articulation, which is very Rimco style. You've got Funko. I mean, holy crap, those guys are just knocking out great stuff. I don't care if you like Pops or not. They're doing Universal Monsters, like through Walgreens. They're doing just great killer stuff. So, I mean, there's always going to be, I think we're at a point now where there's always going to be monsters on the shelf. I think the minute when NECA gets, where we think NECA is maybe mined at all, they're going to go back and do something.
Oh, there's still IPs out there that they haven't touched on that I'd love to see. I mean, still haven't seen legit Addams Family stuff.
Addams Family.
Munster's got to get done up by Diamond not too long ago.
Yeah.
But, I mean.
Well, you got Mezco did do 5 points for articulation, Addams Family, based on the newest movie, which were kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
But they're here to stay. This stuff's going to be with us now for a long time. It's kind of ingratiated itself from like those movies that are behind that counter over there that you can't get to now. It's at Walmart, it's at Walmart, it's at Target, it's everywhere. And that's kind of cool. So we're seeing it definitely come back.
Yeah, I mean, we had in the 2000s, there were some problems. I mean, we know that for a fact with Toys R Us. And the sad part is it wasn't even a horror figure that got us in trouble. It was a Breaking Bad figure that had a bag of meth in it, and it was an aisle, and a parent saw it and flipped out, and that's when they started cutting back on stuff. But, I mean, we had a little bit of a dial back, but all it did was, what happened was when Toys R Us backed off, the other ones went harder in. Next, FYE just like, oh, we'll go hard into it. And
Yep. I remember. Oh yeah. So it's definitely very cool to see this stuff back. I just seen something that was kind of cool. As a fan of the new version of It, they put out a bunch of figures of that character, and always different heads and different that and this and that. Now they're making like I don't know what you'd put, like a double ultimate. Basically, every accessory they made for every single one of those figures and every head
is all in one.
All in one. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I mean, there's stuff like that makes me appreciate kind of the world we're living in now. So
and the thing is, just when we think it's over, I mean, I'm waiting for the day. I mean, Mezco touched one time on it, and that was with the character from 4 with the cockroach. Nobody's ever went out and chased down the characters from the films.
No,
we have never gotten
Warriors.
different never got the Dream Warriors. We've never got Dan in the motorcycle where the motorcycle fuses to his body. I mean, if they start getting likeness rights from Lisa Wilcox, from Patricia Arquette, and
Well,
all these people,
they're going hard on the turtle side because they got everybody on the turtles. All the turtle movie.
Hell, they just locked down the two hardest actresses at one point for likenesses to lock down was Jamie Lee Curtis and Sigourney Weaver.
And and then all
they
of a
got
sudden,
them both.
Yeah, there she is. And in Ultimate, I mean, there's Jamie Strode. So it's great, man. We're living in a rarefied air right now when it comes to some of this stuff. And and honestly, as long as people are buying it and it's selling and it looks like it is, we're going to keep getting more and more stuff. They're going to keep going back.
Yeah, the day they sign Heather Langenkamp to a likeness right and they do a Nancy figure in a 2-pack with Freddie for number 1 and then do one for number 3, we won't be able to touch that figure ever.
Probably. Yeah. It's going to be pretty hard to. People are going to love it. That's the stuff that we're seeing. We're seeing them going after these folks like that, like the guy that played Casey Jones and the lady that played what's her name, April O'Neil. Like they have their own figures.
And the teenage kid.
Danny or something, and he's got a figure and stuff. So they're going back because they know the fans need those.
And the funny thing about the Danny figure, off horror topic, they did it so accurately that the T-shirt of him that he's wearing of Sid Vicious, they got Sid Vicious's rights to be on the T-shirt.
That's nice. Well, and that's very smart too, because I don't know if you know, you're a music guy. You follow the same stuff I do. Not Mezco, but NECA got into not NECA. I'm sorry, Funko got in trouble when it came to guitars.
They did with Gibson.
Yep, because they didn't realize that those guitars
are trademark shaped.
Yeah, and colors are trademarked.
Yep. They learned
Sunburst and
it was over the Slash figure.
Yeah, they got in trouble, and then they got their hands slapped. So
I imagine a check got cut for that as an apology. So
I'm sure, it's like, oh, here's your,
Gibson's on the verge of bankruptcy. If they come and check for $100,000, they're probably like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you just bought us lunch this week, thanks.
Yep.
But so we're seeing the future of these. We're getting more and more and more super detailed, super articulated. Just fantastic figures.
And then on the other end of the craziness, you not only you have those, but then you have the reaction figures.
Yeah, the
3 3/4. Yeah, the 3 3/4 reaction figures, that the classic style Star Wars-esque figures from the 70s. A mountain of them are out now for everything from the Misfits to all kinds of horror stuff now.
So behind me is, I think,
a wall of the Fiends.
The Fiends, all different colors.
Yeah.
I'm missing one. I'm missing one figure. And it's like a $400 piece from what's that? Like New York Comic Con or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's something like that. I don't know. I'm never going to have it, but whatever. But they've done everything, and they keep doing the music, and they keep doing the horror.
That's reactions part of Super 7, isn't it?
They are owned, but it is Super 7. Yeah, it is Super 7. It started out as part of as a conjoined effort with Funko when they released the prototype, the unreleased Alien figures.
Yeah.
I've got those as well. In my heart, I'm very nostalgic when it comes to the 5-point of articulation, 3 3/4, the basically the vintage Star Wars scale. I'm a dork over those. I love them.
Yeah. I can appreciate. I'm not a huge fan, but I can appreciate them, like with the ones they've done. Like I've seen all kinds, and the card, the details on the card is insane. From the Back to the Future ones I've seen with the hoverboards, the Powder Toast Man one for Ren and Stimpy. I mean.
Ghost with the upside down, the crucifix. They do a fantastic job. And the horror stuff, they commission famous artists and stuff to do the artwork for these. So for me, off subject, not quite off subject, I really look at what Reaction Super 7 does with the Reaction line. They create an art piece. It's not just a toy. It is a toy, but it's on a piece of art, and it's all a cohesive package. It's a piece of pop art, and I love it. But
I'm
waiting seeing more horror. We've seen a lot of horror. We've seen Freddy, Jason.
Yeah, I'm waiting for reactions at some point. It's supposed to hear something from Super 7 about the Cliff Burton situation. But
Yep.
And I don't know what's going to happen with it, but yeah, I'm waiting for that. But yeah, as far as horror goes, now we're getting all different looks that you could possibly get from. If you're a fan of a single movie, you can get that one figure now. You're not like stuck with a random Jason. If you want the one from 4, you get the one from 4. If you want the one from 7, you get the one from 7. If you want the one from 5, too bad it's not Jason.
Yeah, that's true. But no, this is I think we're going to do a couple more episodes to round out our Halloween. I don't know what we're going to do quite yet, but I definitely wanted to get the horror up front because that's kind of a love of both of ours. We both have collected these and are fans of these movies, but we're also fans of the figures, and we've been around pretty much since the beginning up until, hell, now I'm waiting on pre-orders. You just got one in, and
Yep. I'm still chasing down a Pinhead Ultimate. So
man, that's a damn hard one to find too.
I've been catching it here, there, and everywhere, but I'm not wanting to spend $50 for it.
Man, next time I see, I think last time I seen this in Target, I'll grab it. Hell with it. But yeah, I'll have to do that. So, folks, if you got anything out there that you want us to cover moving forward, reach out to us, let us know. We'll be more than happy to do a deep dive. Take a look at it. And, if you have anything you want us to review, that's something we're going to start doing as well. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. We basically converted all the ITCE podcast socials over to Off the Card just recently. So some of you are probably already fans and you don't even know it.
Yeah,
because we switched it on you.
You're stuck with us now.
You're stuck. We're in there. Yeah, you like it. We're like gumming your hair.
Yep. We're like an iTunes agreement.
Yeah, that's gonna follow you. But no, find us online. Follow us. Like, subscribe, whatever all the cool kids say over there on YouTube. We're not on YouTube, but wherever you get your podcast, you can find us. We're pretty easy to find. And we are. This is the first episode. If this goes out in time, happy October and happy Halloween. And we will talk to you soon.